When you feel restless, when you want to break free from what's familiar, it's not a problem. It's progress. These moments, when you question everything, are life's way of telling you you're ready to grow. Ready to uncover the 6 signs that a better version of your life is waiting? Let's begin. Because sometimes, what feels like falling apart is actually the first step towards something new. If you're on this path of becoming, make sure to like the video and subscribe. This is just the start of unlocking the transformation that's already unfolding within you. Restlessness isn't the enemy. It's a signpost. What you're feeling right now, that persistent sense of unease, isn't proof that you're off track. It's actually the first indicator that something inside you is shifting. The discomfort, the quiet urge to question everything you've built your life around, is not a mistake. It's your psyche's way of letting you know you're ready for something different. Maybe you find yourself moving through each day on autopilot. From the outside, you have stability. You're doing everything you were supposed to do. But inside, there's a tension you can't shake. Despite checking every box, you keep asking, is this really it? The routine that once gave you comfort now feels rigid, and the things that once brought you satisfaction have lost their spark. You're not alone in this. Most people have been taught to ignore these feelings, to silence that inner restlessness, and just be grateful. But the truth is, ignoring it only makes it louder. Society tells you that restlessness is a flaw, a problem to fix. If you're dissatisfied, you're told to lower your expectations or just push through. But that's not what's happening here. The discomfort isn't instability. It's transformation trying to break through. Change doesn't show up with clear instructions. It arrives as a whisper. Are you paying attention? That's when you know you're standing at the edge of something new. Carl Jung spoke directly to this experience. He called it disorientation, the period when your psyche starts to break free from inherited narratives. For years, you've carried stories handed down by family, culture, and society. They pile up, layer after layer, until the person you truly are becomes hidden beneath them. When restlessness rises, those layers start to crack. This isn't chaos. It's your mind outgrowing the old story, your soul pushing for a more conscious existence. Let's make this concrete. Picture yourself in a job you once loved. It gave you purpose, maybe even a sense of identity. But now, each day feels heavier. The work hasn't changed, but you have. What used to motivate you now feels empty. You wonder why the things that once mattered just don't anymore. That's not failure. It's your inner self signaling that you're ready for something more aligned with who you are becoming. That gap between knowing something feels off and knowing what to do about it. That's where most people get stuck. The uncertainty is uncomfortable, so you cling to the familiar, hoping it will feel right again. But here's the truth. The discomfort is not a sign to turn back. It's the birth of clarity. Restlessness is how your soul clears space for something new to take root. Think about how growth works. Before a tree can stretch toward the sky, the soil has to be disturbed. Seeds don't sprout in undisturbed ground. The shakeup is part of the process. You're experiencing the same thing. The unease you feel is the ground shifting, making room for new possibilities. It's not a breakdown, it's the start of something real. Your restlessness is not a failure or a sign that you've missed out on something others have figured out. It's your deeper self telling you you're ready. Ready for a life that isn't just a repetition of old habits and expectations, but one that actually fits the person you are becoming. The next time you feel that discomfort, don't rush to cover it up. Sit with it. Ask yourself what it's trying to show you. What are you being invited to notice? What new story is waiting to be written? You don't need to have all the answers right now. Growth isn't a sudden leap. It's a series of steps, each one moving you further from the old and closer to the life that actually fits. The restlessness you feel is the beginning, not the end. Can you feel that soil breaking beneath your feet? Let's see why that matters. Sometimes, the things that once felt like home start to feel unfamiliar. You notice it in small ways first. A hobby that no longer excites you, A routine that feels more like a chore. A conversation with an old friend that leaves you feeling empty instead of energized. The places, people, and habits that used to anchor you now seem oddly distant. This is sign 2, detaching from what no longer serves you, Jung's second marker on the path to individuation. At first, this shift doesn't feel like progress. It feels like loss. There's a quiet grief that comes with realizing the things that defined you have lost their meaning. You might try to force yourself back into old patterns, hoping the feeling will return, but it doesn't. The sadness isn't just about missing what was. It's about saying goodbye to a version of yourself that no longer fits. This detachment isn't random or meaningless. It's a purposeful signal from your deeper self that you're ready for something more real. The process is uncomfortable because comfort is hard to release, even when it stops working. You find yourself asking, why isn't this enough anymore? Why can't I make it work? Maybe you look at your circle of friends, people who once felt like family, and realize the connection is fading. There's nothing wrong with them or with you. It's just that the energy has shifted. The laughter and closeness you shared now feel forced, and you leave those interactions wondering if it's you who changed or if the friendship has simply run its course. Here's the truth. That guilt you feel about drifting away is just resistance to growth. Carl Jung described individuation as the process of integrating all aspects of yourself, even the parts you've hidden or ignored. But to do that, you have to let go of the attachments that held up your old identity. Detachment isn't about abandoning your past or the people in it. It's about freeing yourself from what no longer reflects your truth. When you notice yourself stepping back from routines, relationships, or ambitions that once mattered, it's not a failure. It's your soul moving toward alignment. Think about someone who's spent years chasing goals that once meant everything, working late, collecting achievements, building an identity around success. Then one day, those accomplishments feel hollow. No promotion or recognition can fill the gap. That emptiness isn't a sign to try harder. It's an invitation to realign. The same goes for friendships or passions that lose their spark. The loss you feel isn't about the other person or the activity itself. It's about outgrowing the story you used to tell about who you are. Most people get stuck here. They keep trying to make the old things fit, doubling down on routines or relationships out of habit or guilt. But holding on only delays the inevitable. The more you resist, the more disconnected you feel. Letting go isn't easy, but it's necessary. The space that detachment creates is uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar, but it's also full of possibility. This process isn't about erasing your history. It's about making room for something that actually fits who you're becoming. The familiar starts to feel foreign because you're shedding outdated layers, roles, attachments, and expectations that no longer serve you. The grief is real, but so is the freedom that follows. When you stop clinging to what's run its course, you start to see the outlines of a life that's more honest, more aligned, and more your own. The real challenge comes when you realize that what used to matter just doesn't anymore. You're left with the question, if the old definitions of meaning are gone, what does matter now? That's where things get interesting. Sign 3. Redefining what truly matters. When the ambitions and pursuits that once drove you start to lose their pull, it's not just a phase. It's a pivotal moment in your transformation. Suddenly, the need for status, recognition, or even constant achievement feels hollow. The things you used to chase begin to look less like milestones and more like distractions. There's an unease in this realization, a sense of drifting as old motivations fade. But beneath that discomfort is the first real hint of freedom. For most of your life, you've been handed a list of what should matter: career success, material comfort, the approval of others. These goals are so ingrained that questioning them feels almost rebellious. You work hard, you compete, you accumulate because that's what you've been told is important. But as you move through this process, something shifts. The victories that once brought a rush of satisfaction start to feel empty, like you're celebrating someone else's success instead of your own. Even when you hit every target, the sense of fulfillment is fleeting, replaced by a quiet question. Is this all there is? Let's be honest. Turning away from these external markers isn't easy. The fear of being misunderstood or judged is real. You wonder if people will see your change as giving up or failing. The pressure to keep up appearances can be overwhelming. But here's the truth. Those expectations were never really yours. Jung described individuation as the journey of peeling away the layers of the false self, the identity shaped by what others want or expect, and finding the authentic self beneath. This isn't just about personal preference. It's about survival, about building a life that actually fits who you are, not who you're told to be. This shift doesn't mean ambition disappears. Instead, ambition is redefined. It's no longer about impressing others or collecting trophies. It's about living in alignment with your own values. The energy you once spent seeking validation outside yourself is redirected inward. You start to ask a different question. What do I actually care about? That's the beginning of building a life that's yours. Picture someone who's reached the peak of their career. On paper, they have everything: respect, influence, admiration. But when they wake up, there's no excitement, only a sense of dread for another day of going through the motions. The turning point isn't when they get a new title or a bigger paycheck. It's that first morning they realize they no longer need to force themselves into a role that doesn't fit. Stepping away, they choose something quieter, something that resonates with who they are now. To outsiders, it might look like a step down, but for them, it's the first time in years that their life feels honest. Or consider someone who's spent years trying to fit in, molding themselves to be accepted by a particular group. They keep up appearances, say the right things, play the part. Over time, the effort drains them. Eventually, they choose depth over popularity, real connection over surface-level approval. They find themselves drawn to solitude or to a few close relationships that feel genuine. It's not about losing friends or status. It's about choosing authenticity over performance. This redefinition is unsettling because you're stepping into unknown territory. The metrics you use to measure your life no longer apply. For a while, it may feel like you're wandering without a map. People around you may question your choices or even distance themselves. That's part of the process. The more you let go of the noise and opinions outside, the more you notice the quiet clarity within. That clarity isn't interested in applause or fitting in. It's focused on living a life that feels true. Here's the paradox. The less you care about impressing others, the more clearly you hear your own voice. The need for external validation fades, replaced by a sense of calm that comes from knowing you're living for yourself. The change isn't dramatic or instant. It happens in small, daily decisions, choosing what feels right over what looks right, even if no one else notices. Over time, you realize you don't have to prove anything. You're not building a life for show. You're building one that sustains you. Fulfillment doesn't come from following someone else's script. It comes from asking what genuinely nourishes you. Are you energized by your path, or are you running on empty? Are you living for admiration or for your own peace? The answers aren't always immediate, but they become clearer as you stop clinging to what no longer matters. So if applause no longer moves you, where do you turn? Next, we explore the most reliable guide of all. Sign 4. Trusting the quiet voice within. Most people spend their lives searching for answers in the world around them, chasing advice, strategies, and formulas that promise certainty. But there comes a point when none of that fits anymore. You're left with a quiet, persistent sense that what you need isn't out there at all. It's inside you, waiting for you to listen. Intuition isn't dramatic. It doesn't shout or demand attention. Instead, it's a subtle, steady sense of knowing. A nudge that pulls you in a direction you can't always explain. It's not about logic or evidence. It's not about what others think makes sense. Carl Jung described intuition as a bridge between your conscious mind and the deeper layers of your unconscious. It's the part of you that senses what you need before you can put it into words. Think about someone who, after years of living in the same city, wakes up one morning with a clear sense that it's time to move. There's no logical reason, no checklist of pros and cons that can fully explain it. They just know. And when they finally act on that feeling, everything starts to fall into place in ways they couldn't have predicted. That's the real challenge. Trusting yourself without guarantees. You've been conditioned to value logic, to look for proof, to wait for someone else to validate your choices. Intuition asks you to do the opposite. It asks you to move forward even when the path isn't clear, to choose what feels right even if you can't explain why. Most people hesitate because they're afraid of being wrong, afraid of making a mistake that can't be fixed. But intuition isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about alignment, about moving closer to the life that actually fits you. You see this in the stories of artists who create something new because they feel compelled, not because it's popular or guaranteed to succeed. Entrepreneurs who build businesses on a gut feeling, even when everyone else doubts them. Their choices don't always make sense to outsiders, but that's the point. Intuition isn't about pleasing the crowd. It's about following the only compass that's truly yours. The more you listen to your intuition, the more your life starts to reflect it. You notice you're drawn to different people, different places, different opportunities. Things that once seemed important start to fade. You become less interested in what others think and more interested in what feels real. There's a shift. Your decisions become less about proving yourself and more about honoring what matters to you. This isn't magic. It's the result of living in alignment with your authentic self. Building trust in your intuition isn't a one-time leap. It's a practice. It means making space for quiet, paying attention to your feelings, and learning to tell the difference between fear and genuine inner guidance.